Just so you know, this show is about scary stuff. So don't say I didn't warn you guys. And remember, don't be scared.
Episode 84. Lured. War Baby here with another episode of Murderous Minors. Can a child learn to be a murderer? Someone who believes so is the father of Autumn Pasquale, the Clayton, New Jersey 12-year-old who was murdered by an acquaintance in 2012. Though it remains on paper only, Autumn's law was drafted with the intent of punishing parents who have raised a killer kid. On this episode of Murderous Minors, we examine the events surrounding the death of Autumn Pasquale, which was widely reported to have been the result of a plan to steal the girl's BMX bike. But over 5 years after his crime, the killer, as well as his mother, broke their silences surrounding some details of the murder and aftermath that they claim were falsely reported. The tragedy began back in October of 2012 in the tiny town of Clayton, New Jersey, only 8 square miles in all, which sits just 20 miles or so from Philadelphia with a population of a bit over 8,000. Autumn Lee Pasquale had grown up in Clayton and was preparing to celebrate her 13th birthday on October 29th. She had already received a white Odyssey BMX bike from her dad a bit early, and it had quickly become her prized possession. The middle child was in 7th grade and was a cheerleader, a dancer, and soccer player, as well as a self-proclaimed tomboy. Her parents had divorced when she was 3 years old, and she and her older brother and younger sister spent the majority of their time living with their father. He had grown up in Clayton as well and worked as a postal carrier in town. Autumn got good grades in school and was an obedient child, the kind that parents feel they don't have to worry too much about. Her favorite thing in the world seemed to be this new bike and all things BMX. But this passion ultimately put Autumn in direct contact with the person who would prematurely take her life. What we know to be true is that on October 17, 2012, Autumn commented on a Facebook post made by 15-year-old Justin Robinson. A photo of a BMX bike he said was his. Autumn replied, "That's sexy," in the abbreviated, casual way some kids communicate. He told her to come over to his house. The pair next exchanged private Facebook messages about him installing some rims on her bike for her for a small fee. Justin told Autumn that she'd need to come to his house or meet him somewhere in between because he couldn't walk all that well due to an ankle injury he'd sustained as a child, and 3 days later, she did. That Saturday, October 20th, 2012, Autumn left her home on High Street around 12:30 and headed toward Clayton Avenue and the Robinsons' home where Justin lived with his 2 older brothers, mother, and new stepfather. It was homecoming day at the high school, and Autumn's older brother was playing in the football game, as was Justin's oldest brother, so the parents of both kids were watching the game with their younger children doing their own things. After heading off on her bike just after noon, it's reported that their messages show that Autumn was making her way toward Justin and showed up on his street around 2:45 p.m. Justin and his 17-year-old brother Dante were the only 2 in their home that day, and tire prints would later show from which direction the young girl wheeled her prized BMX into the basement of the Robinson boys' home. Dante was said to be upstairs, but knew that Autumn was meant to come over and trade bike parts while their mother was out. At one point, he hollered down to the basement to encourage his brother to hurry up before their mom got home. In that interview that Justin gave Matt Grafe for NJ.com in March of 2018, he said that after he installed some parts on her bike, Autumn failed to pay him the $10 she'd promised to give him for the work. He said that when he told her she wasn't leaving with her bike without paying him, Autumn began hitting at him. He calmly describes in the interview that he, quote, didn't know what to do. I didn't want to hit her physically. I just threw my hands around her neck and I just choked her until she stopped hitting me. When she went limp, I let her go. It was around 3:30 p.m. Justin went on to explain when interviewed that he began to panic about what to do with Autumn's body and ultimately looked to the abandoned vacant house next to his. As we've seen before, this killer too selected a blue recycle bin belonging to a neighboring home. He says the heartless task was completed by the time his mother arrived home at 4 p.m. and inquired as to why he was so sweaty. He told her everything was fine. He messaged Autumn a few times pretending they had never met up. He replied, "That's good," on a social media post made by Autumn's brother in reference to the search efforts. After watching the homecoming game and then coming home and helping his son get ready for the dance, Autumn's father returned to their home around 8 p.m. and expected to see the girl there in the house. However, she wasn't there. It was completely uncharacteristic for Autumn to defy the rules and not be where she was supposed to be, but her dad let it slide for just a bit longer. By 9:30 p.m., he had given her a buffer of 30 minutes and had called and checked in with every single person he could think of, but with no sign of his daughter, he alerted the authorities. Immediately, he says that Clayton police treated his daughter's disappearance as if she were a runaway, even though he tried to make it abundantly clear that this was not the case. His daughter was either in danger or she was hurt somewhere. She wasn't gone by choice. Clayton, New Jersey hadn't had a murder since 1998, the year before Autumn was even born. But even so, local police maintain to this day that they allocated all possible manpower and resources toward finding the missing child as quickly as possible. Social media blew up as news of Autumn's disappearance spread locally, and a Facebook page dedicated to organizing the effort to find her helped amass a large search party, and quickly. Now, it was widely reported at the time that it was Justin's mother who approached police after seeing social media messages between Justin and the missing girl, but in the 2018 interview, she disputed that as a fact, saying it never happened. Many people had praised her in the news at the time for having the courage to turn her son into the police without even knowing what his involvement was, but she says it didn't happen and gave no indication of what did tip them off to her son. Even without that information, all police would have had to do to zero in on Justin was to check Autumn's Facebook and text messages, as the trail led directly to his house. The following day, on Sunday, Justin updated his Facebook status to, quote, "might be moving," and a frowning face. He also liked the Facebook page dedicated to finding Autumn and strangely posted just the word Autumn on her older brother's Facebook page. When a commenter asked why, he explained it away, saying it was done by accident by his brother Dante when the police were there questioning them. The Robinson brothers were indeed questioned, and what police heard only aroused their suspicions. By Monday, helicopters, ATVs, canines, specially trained horses, 200 law enforcement officers, and more than 2,500 volunteers turned up in hopes of locating Autumn. Following the initial confusing information Justin and Dante gave police, the brothers, along with their mother and stepfather, were asked to appear at Clayton Police Headquarters for further questioning. The The four of them were there on Monday evening during a vigil held for Autumn, though it was rumored and reported that Justin had been seen there smiling. Where he truly was being interrogated while his street was being canvassed, and it was while the family was there that the body of 12-year-old Autumn Lee Pasquale was found. She was upside down inside of the blue barrel, and the clothing Justin would later say was pulled up by accident when he took her out of the basement was found later in a plastic bag inside his home. At the station, the boys were described as becoming angry, upset at the discovery of Autumn's body, and the police report indicates that Justin prayed with and asked a nearby officer if God would forgive him. Autumn's cell phone was found taped to the back of a toilet in the home, and her beloved BMX bicycle was still inside the basement as well. Both 15-year-old Justin and 17-year-old Dante Robinson were arrested and charged with murder, conspiracy to commit murder, disposing of a body, tampering with evidence, and theft. And Justin was additionally charged with luring. The theft of Autumn's bike was determined to have been the likely motive for her murder, though as I mentioned earlier, both Justin and his mother disputed this in their later interview. The same day the brothers were arrested, an autopsy determined that Autumn's cause of death was strangulation. She had not been sexually assaulted. Her older brother took to Facebook, posting a status that described how he would beat them up should he ever see either brother again. The association between Autumn and Justin was unclear at first, before it became apparent that they only knew each other through their mutual interest in the BMX bike scene. Autumn did have a grandmother who had taught Justin as a student in middle school, but as a teacher there for more than 2 decades, she had seen hundreds if not thousands of children pass through her classroom. And though Justin and Autumn's older brother did play on a town football team that she cheered for, they weren't known to have associated then. The middle school and high school did share a campus, but the two kids were separated in age by 3 grades and never had any classes together. Their only connection was bikes. On the morning after Autumn's body was found, Justin and Dante's father was among the cluster of concerned residents who had gathered outside the house adjacent to his ex-wife's home. She was a Clayton, New Jersey native as well, and had inherited the home from her grandmother. The boys' father, who hadn't seen them in about a year at that point, and who had had little contact with them since the 2006 divorce, told the press on the street that perhaps his sons had snatched the little girl off of the bike so they could get their hands on it. And there were several instances in the past that had driven the police to the residence, and trial preparation would unearth more than 700 pages of police logs and court documents revealing a decade's worth of problems in the family. Some of the paperwork was in reference to allegations of bullying, shoplifting, and theft against the boys, and another local teen had even told a reporter that when his bike went missing, he went directly to the Robinson backyard and got it back. Other documents laid out a history of domestic violence issues in the home prior to the 2006 divorce, and these revelations, along with the release of Justin's medical diagnoses, fueled Autumn's father to push back on the assertion that only the killer or killers were the guilty parties here. The court-appointed psychologist returned with a report stating that Justin had ADHD, PTSD, generalized anxiety disorder, somatic symptom disorder, and a low IQ. Fetal alcohol syndrome was also thrown around in reference to both Justin and Dante, who attended Bankbridge Developmental Center, a school for students with learning and behavioral challenges. However, no test results were ever made public to back this up. Their mother also refuted this claim. In August of 2013, Justin Robinson took